She's the reason your mother is dead. She killed your mother with her lies and foolishness. Jumoke is responsible for everything. You are no longer part of this family. Pack your things and leave tonight, or I swear you won't live to see the next day. You are nothing but a disgrace, her father yelled at her. Once upon a time, in Ondo State, there lived a couple named Mr. and Mrs. Afolabi. They were blessed with 5 children, 3 girls and 2 boys, Iremide, Moju, Jumoke, David and Ojo. But this family was a bit unusual. Iremide was the first daughter, Mojo was the second daughter, David was the 3rd son, Jumoke was the 4th daughter, and Jumoju was the last born. Iremide was 23 years old, Moju was 21 years old, David was 20 years old, Jumoke was 17 years old, and Jumoju was 14 years old. Among all the children, Jumoke was her mother's favorite because she was brilliant and hardworking. She was more focused on her studies. Iremide was in her final year at the university. Moju was in her 2nd year at the university, while Jumoke was preparing to gain admission. David was not interested in attending university. He preferred to learn a trade, while Jumoju was in SS1. Mrs. Afolabi sold provision at the market and was popularly known as a Yaoja. Her husband, Mr. Afolabi, was a mechanic, but the problem with him was that he was a drunkard. He often stole his wife's money to drink, and sometimes he would fight her. Mrs. Afolabi was the one paying for her children's school fees, and Mr. Afolabi was not interested in helping. Mrs. Afolabi didn't mind, though her main goal was to see all her children succeed in the future. But everything changed when Jumoke entered the university. Jumoke scored 300 in her JAMB examination and was admitted in the University of Lagos, UNILAG. Her mother was so happy, and when her sister heard about it, they were happy but also a bit jealous. They had both tried their best to enter UNILAG, but couldn't due to their JAMB results. Mrs. Afolabi was so proud of her brilliant daughter, and at the market, everyone praised her. Before Jumoke left for the university, her mother spoke to her, telling her to remember the type of family she came from, and to avoid bad friends. Jumoke promised not to disappoint her mother. When Jumoke arrived at the university, she was very excited. Her mother gave her some money and provisions. 1 month later, Jumoke made a friend named Amaka, who was older than her. Amaka was also a brilliant student, and the two of them often studied together, ate together, and went everywhere together. When both of them reached 200 level, they started staying in the same hostel. Jumoke continued to be a good girl, but one day, Jumoke and Amaka went to a birthday party. It was Amaka's sister's birthday. Jumoke felt uncomfortable there because of the drinking and smoking and partying. Amaka gave her some wine and she drank it. When they played a game, the rule was that if you fail, you had to take 2 shots of alcohol. If you want to quit, you had to pay 20k. Jumoke wasn't comfortable playing, but Amaka assured her that it wasn't a big deal and that it was just a game. Jumoke joined, but after failing several times, she became so drunk that she lost track of what was happening. The next morning, she woke up with a hangover and pains between her legs. She opened her eyes and realized she was in a strange room. Amaka was still asleep on the bed. When Jumoke finally gathered herself, she realized she was naked. She woke Amaka up to ask what happened. "Oh, my head hurts," Amaka said. "Why am I naked and what happened last night?" Jumoke asked Amaka. "Oh, nothing really happened. You were so drunk that you vomited on your clothes. So I helped you change," Amaka said. "Amaka, I told you I am not used to this, but where are we now?" Jumoke asked. "We are in a motel. I wasn't really myself yesterday either," Amaka said. "I am not doing this again. Anyways, thanks for helping me change. We need to get dressed and go back to school," Jumoke said. "Yes, That is true. Let's get something to eat first. I will order a ride to take us back to school, but I hope you enjoyed yourself, Amaka said. I am not happy that I got drunk to the extent of messing with my own body, Jumoke said. That is fine. Just get dressed. Your clothes must have dried since I helped you to wash them, Amaka said. Okay, thank you. I appreciate you, Jumoke said. 2 months later, Jumoke went home for the holiday since their school was on strike. Her mother was excited to see her daughter and they gisted for a while. Iremide was also home, having finished her university studies. 2 days later, Jumoke suddenly fell sick. Everything made her nauseous and she would vomit whenever she ate anything. Iremide walked up to her while she was lying in her room, looking fragile. This one you are always vomiting and lying down strangely. I hope everything is fine, oh, Iremide said. Yes, my big sister. Maybe I'm just stressed out or it is malaria again, Jumoke said. Have you talked to your mother about it? Iremide asked. Yes, she gave me some herbal medicine and she said she would take me to the hospital tomorrow. Okay, I hope it is not what I'm thinking, Iremide said. What are you trying to say, big sister? Who knows, maybe you are pregnant. Haba now, sister. How can I be pregnant when I normally get my period? Besides, I haven't slept with any guy. I don't even have a boyfriend. So how can I get pregnant? Okay, if you say so, I hope you recover soon. Thank you, Jumoke said. The next day, Mrs. Afolabi took Jumoke to the hospital and the doctor ran some tests after asking her a few questions. At the doctor's office, Mrs. Afolabi began to ask the doctor, Doctor, what is wrong with my daughter? Is it malaria? The doctor replied her, Well, the result shows that your daughter is 1 month and 2 weeks pregnant. Jumoke and her mother were shocked. You must be joking, My daughter cannot be pregnant, doctor. Maybe this is someone else's result. My daughter doesn't have a boyfriend, Jumoke's mother said. Yes, doctor. I don't have a boyfriend and I haven't slept with any guy. Besides, I saw my period last week, so how can I be pregnant, doctor? Jumoke asked. It happens sometimes. You can still be pregnant and see your period. It will stop by itself, the doctor replied her. I am not pregnant. I am not pregnant, doctor. I have never slept with any man, so how can I be pregnant, doctor? Jumoke said, slamming her hand on the table. Mrs. Afolabi was still trying to process everything. Young lady, you need to calm down. I can't lie about the test results, the doctor said. Doctor, it is clear that you don't know anything about your job. I will take my daughter to another hospital, Mrs. Afolabi said. You are free to, ma'am, the doctor replied. Mother, believe me, I have never slept with any guy before. Nobody has ever seen my nakedness. I can't be pregnant. How is that even possible? Jumoke said. My daughter, I believe you. Let's leave this hospital. The doctor might be confused or clearly drunk like your father. Have a good day, doctor, Mrs. Afolabi said as they walked out of the hospital and went to another one, but the doctor there gave them the same results. Mrs. Afolabi began to shout, Jumoke, you have killed me. Jumoke, you have killed me. This can't be true, Mama. You need to believe me. I am not pregnant. What is wrong with all these doctors? I am not pregnant, Mama, Jumoke said. Mrs. Afolabi fainted immediately in the office, and the doctor quickly rushed her to another room, trying to revive her. Jumoke was shivering. Her hand trembled as she dialed Iremide's number, her heart racing. Her voice was barely steady when her sister picked up. Iremide, please come to the hospital. Mama just fainted. She's not okay. What? How is mom not okay? I thought you were the one who was sick, Iremide asked. Just come, please. Just come, please. Hurry up, Jumoke said as she began to cry. Minutes later, Iremide arrived at the hospital, looking around in panic. She had expected to see Jumoke in a bed, but instead, their mother was lying there, hooked up in a drip, tears streaming down her face. Jumoke, what happened? Why is mom on drip? I thought you were the one feeling sick. What's going on? Iremide shouted. Jumoke couldn't speak. Her throat was dry and the room felt dizzy. Without saying anything, she turned and ran out, leaving Iremide confused and angry. Iremide rushed to her mother's side. Mama, it is okay. Please don't cry. Everything will be fine. She held her mother's hand and gently stroked her head. Mrs. Afolabi was weak, her body shaken by the stress. Hours passed and later that night, the doctor discharged her with a stern warning. Your mother's blood pressure is dangerously high. Make sure she gets plenty of rest and avoid any stress, the doctor said. They left the hospital quietly. Mrs. Afolabi didn't speak. Tears flowed steadily on her face. Jumoke, still in shock, walked silently beside her sister. Iremide, confused and fearful, had no idea what was really happening. When they got home, Mrs. Afolabi collapsed into a chair, crying loudly. I am finished! I am finished. Why me? Who have I offended? Who have I offended? Mr. Afolabi, busy watching a football match, turned around in irritation. What is going on here? Why are you shouting like this? I am watching the match. Can't you let me have some peace in my house? He shouted in anger. Daddy, we just came back from the hospital. Mommy has high blood pressure and she has been crying since. Please show some concern, Iremide said. Mrs. Afolabi grumbled. High blood pressure. Well, she's always running around shouting. It is no surprise. She should just let me watch my football in peace, he said. Dad, Mom, what is going on here? Jumoke, can't you speak? Iremide said in anger. Suddenly, Mrs. Afolabi screamed in pain. Jumoke is pregnant! My daughter is pregnant. She has killed me. Everyone in the house froze in shock. Mr. Afolabi, David and Jomoju turned to look at her in disbelief. What? Everyone shouted. Iremide's heart sank. She turned to Jumoke, her voice shaking. Jumoke, is it true? Are you pregnant? Iremide asked. Jumoke busted into tears, her voice barely audible as she tried to explain. I don't know. I don't understand. I have never been with any man before. I don't even have a boyfriend. I don't know what is happening. Please, you people should help me. Mr. Afolabi, furious, stormed toward Jumoke. Who is responsible for this? Tell me now before I lose my temper. Who did this to you? He yelled. Jumoke fell to her knee, crying uncontrollable. I don't know. I swear I don't know. I have never been with anyone. I don't understand this. Iremide knelt beside her, speaking softly but urgent. Please, Jumoke, you have to tell us the truth. We will help you, but we need to know who did this. Who is responsible? Iremide asked. Jumoke shook her head. I don't know. Iremide, I swear. Please believe me. I am confused too. I don't have a boyfriend. Mrs. Afolabi suddenly stood up, her face twisted with pain. She began to scream. How can you not know? This isn't possible. Tell me who did this. Before anyone could react, Mrs. Afolabi collapsed onto the floor with a loud taunt, her eyes closing immediately. Mr. Afolabi began to shout, What have you done, Jumoke? Panic filled the room as Mr. Afolabi rushed to his wife, lifting her limped body, shouting to Iremide, Quick, quick, quick! Help me! We need to get her to the hospital now. Iremide, David and Jomoju began to scream, Mommy! Mommy! Iremide and her father hurried out of the house, carrying Mrs. Afolabi between them. Jumoke stood frozen in the living room, tears streaking down her face, while David and Jomoju stood by, too shocked to move. At the hospital, the doctor rushed to check on Mrs. Afolabi, but after a few moments, his face turned cold. Hi! I am sorry. She's gone. There is nothing we could do. What? Mr. Afolabi shouted. Iremide grasped, her hand flying to her mouth as she stumbled backward. Mr. Afolabi stood motionless, staring at his wife's lifeless body, his heart breaking into pieces. Iremide shivered uncontrollably. No. This can't be happening. It is not real. She slapped her face repeatedly, hoping the pain would wake her from the nightmare. But it didn't. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She had waited at the hospital for hours, praying for her mother to wake up, for the doctor to tell them it was all a mistake, but it never came. The truth was too much to bear. Each time she looked at her mother's lifeless body. Moments later, her and her father left the hospital. The drive home was quiet. When they got home, David broke the silence. "Where is my mother?" Iremide lost it. She crumbled to the floor, crying uncontrollably. "Mother is dead. She's gone." Her voice cracked, filled with pain. David and Jomoju screamed, "No, Mom!" David collapsed to his knee, while Jomoju threw himself into Iremide's arms, crying, "I want Mom. I want her back," Jomoju cried. Iremide held him tightly, stroking his head, though nothing could calm the ache in her heart. "It is okay. We will be okay." But deep down, she knew nothing would ever be the same again. Suddenly, Mr. Falabi stood up, his face filled with anger. He stormed toward Jumoke. "This is all your fault," he shouted. He pushed her to the floor. "She trusted you. She always praised you." "Daddy, please. I didn't mean for this to happen. I swear, I didn't. How can Mom be dead? This isn't real," Jumoke pleaded, tears streaming down her face. Iremide rushed forward, grabbing her father's arm. "Daddy, please stop. Don't do this." Mr. Falabi was beyond control. He pointed at Jumoke. "She's the reason your mother is dead. She killed your mother with all her lies and foolishness. Jumoke is responsible for everything." David, still trembling with grief, snapped, "How could you do this to us? To Mom? I loved you, and Mom always told me to look out for you. How could you betray her?" His words broke. Filled with both anger and sorrow, he glared at her. Mr. Falabi's voice boomed, "You are no longer part of this family. Pack your things and leave tonight, or I swear you won't live to see the next day." He stormed off to his room, leaving Jumoke crying on the floor. David and Jomoju stood there, their tears flowing, unable to understand the weight of their loss. Iremide, shaking with emotions, pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and typed a message to Moju, who was still at the university. "Mom is dead. She died tonight. Please stay calm and come home." The message read. She dropped the phone, then turned to Jumoke. Her heart was torn between anger and sorrow. "Why? Jumoke, why did you do this to us? What did we ever do to you? Mom loved you." Jumoke looked at Iremide, her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean to. I didn't want any of this to happen." Iremide's voice grew louder, filled with the weight of her pain. "You were Mom's favorite. She trusted you more than anyone. You betrayed her, and now she's gone. You have made us all motherless." Jumoke's cry shook her internal body, but no word came out. She couldn't fix what was broken. "From now on," Iremide said, her voice trembling with anger, "you are no longer my sister. I don't know you. Just leave us alone. You are responsible for this. I wish you all the pain in the world." The words hit Jumoke like a punch to her stomach. Heartbroken, she slowly stood up, her legs weak. Without a word, she walked out into the cold, dark night. "I am sorry. I am so sorry," Jumoke whispered to herself as she stumbled down the empty streets, her tears blurring her vision. Her world had fallen apart. Her mother was gone. Her family hated her, and she didn't know where to go. Jumoke walked aimlessly, her tears mixing with the cold night air. "Why did this have to happen?" she whispered, wiping her tears with her shaking hands. "I never meant for things to turn out like this." She moved slowly, as though her body was controlled by invisible strings. The world around her felt distant, the hums of traffic, the rustling of leaves, but her mind was full of voices. Her father, Iremide, and David. The way they looked at her full of hate crushed her heart. "Mom, I am sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." she thought to herself, her voice barely a whisper. She felt a deep sadness as she walked, her head down, her shoulders trembled with grief. The more she thought about that night, the more confused she became. What happened after she drank at the party with Amaka? Everything after that was a blur. What happened after I got drunk? Amaka said she helped me undress, but why can't I remember? Jumoke wondered, her frustration growing. I need to talk to Amaka. She must know something I don't. Suddenly, a loud gunshot broke the quiet night. Panic rushed through her and she froze. She looked around, her heart racing. Oh no, Jumoke whispered, fear flooding her. Without thinking, she turned and ran, her heart pounding as the sound of the gunfire followed her. She searched for a place to hide and found an open gate. She rushed in and crouched behind a car, trembling in fear. Please, God, please, don't let them find me, she prayed quietly. Meanwhile, in her hostel, Mojo was getting ready for bed. Let me check my phone, just in case, she thought to herself. Turning on her data, as the notifications loaded, her eyes locked on a message from Iremide. Mom is dead. She died tonight. Please stay calm and come home. The message read. Mojo's word crashed around her. No! She screamed, her voice breaking the quiet night. Her roommates rushed over. Alarmed, Mojo's hand shook as she stared at her phone, unable to believe what she read. Mojo, what is wrong? One roommate asked, her voice filled with worry. Talk to us. Why are you screaming? Another asked, sitting beside her. Mojo was too shaken to speak. She dialed Iremide's number again, but it went straight to voicemail. Frustration built inside her. Why isn't she picking up? Mojo screamed, trying again, only to get a voicemail again. Her roommates exchanged worried looks as Mojo dialed David, then her father, then Jumoke, all to no answer. Why aren't they picking up? She shouted, hitting her phone in desperation. Mojo, please, you are scaring us, one of her roommates said, trying to calm her, but Mojo couldn't stop. Her heart raced and her thoughts went wide. Mom can't be dead. No, it is not true, she yelled. Her roommates were shocked. Their face paled. What did you just say? One asked. But your mom just came to visit us last month. She even brought us gifts, another said in disbelief. Mojo broke down crying uncontrollable. She is gone. She's really gone, she cried, burying her face in her hands. Her roommates tried to comfort her, but she felt as if she was drowning. She reached for her phone one last time, but it went off. No! Why is everything switched off? She screamed, throwing her phone across the room. Her roommates tried to hold her again, but she pushed them away. Her cries echoed through the room. She felt lost, as though there was nothing to hold on to. Back in the compound, Jumoke was still hiding, her heart racing. I need to get out of here, she thought, scanning the area to see if the danger had passed. The gunshot had stopped, but the fear still gripped her. She thought again about Amaka and that night. What happened? I have to confront her. She knows something, she told herself, determined to get answer. Stealing her body, she stood up slowly, her legs shaking. I just need to get to safety, she whispered. She quietly left the compound and walked down the empty streets, wiping away her tears. Her mind was full of fear, guilt and confusion. She needed answers, but she also needed to survive in a world where everyone seemed to have turned against her. Just as she was about to take another step, a voice shouted at her, "Hey, stop there! I will shoot you!" Jumoke ran, her heart pounding as the stranger chased after her. Jumoke ran as fast as her leg could carry her. Grasping for air, her heart pounded loudly in her chest, but the stranger's voice behind her kept her moving. "Hey, stop there! I said you should stop! I'll shoot you!" She didn't dare look back. She waved through the narrow streets, tears blurring her vision. Her body screamed in pain, but she didn't stop. she spotted an uncompleted building ahead and entered inside. Collapsing on the cold, dusty floor, she hugged her knees and trembled. Her breath came in shallow grabs. I escaped. But what now? She whispered to herself. Her mind raced with thoughts she had been trying to avoid. Amaka, the betrayal, and everything that led to this moment. She wiped her tears, but they wouldn't stop. Why did Amaka do this to me? I thought she was my friend. I trusted her, Jumeke said to herself. She couldn't shake the memory of her mother, the guilt pressing down on her chest like a heavy weight. Mom, it is my fault. If I had listened, you'd still be here. You would still be alive. Her hand rested on her stomach as she faced the reality of her pregnancy, the weight of it all, her mother's death, Amaka's betrayal, and the baby growing inside her was too much to bear. She was just 17 years old. The night passed slowly. Jumoke sat in the cold, haunted by her mother's face and the mess her life had become. Early the next morning, Jumoke boarded a bus back to Lagos. Her face paled and weary. She stared out of the window, lost in thoughts, unsure of what awaited her. Meanwhile, back at Afolabi's house, Moju came back home. She busted through the door, panic written all over her face. Mom! Mom! Where are you? She shouted. She searched every room, her heart refusing to accept the truth of Iremide's message. Please, someone tell me this isn't true, Moju said, crying. Iremide stood at the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Moju, it is true. Mama is gone, and it is Jumoke's fault. Moju froze, her leg giving way beneath her. No! It can't be true. Mom loved her the most, Moju said. Iremide knelt down beside her, her voice heavy with grief. She didn't mean to. It was an accident, but it was all because of Jumoke, Iremide said. The house was filled with grief as the siblings cried together, their words shattered. Later that day, Jumoke arrived at school exhausted. She walked into the hostel and froze when she saw Amaka lying on the bed. Amaka sat up, startled. Jumoke, you are back, oh. You didn't even call me, Amaka said nervously. Without a word, Jumoke stormed across the room and slapped her. What the hell? Jumoke, why would you slap me like that? Amaka said. What did you do to me at the party, Amaka? What happened that night? Jumoke asked. Amaka looked confused and defensive. What are you talking about? I didn't do anything to you, Amaka said. Liar! You set me up. I am pregnant because of you, and now my mother is dead, Jumoke replied. Amaka's eyes widened in shock. Pregnant? Jumoke, I swear, I didn't do anything to you. You got drunk and vomited on yourself. I took off your clothes to help you. That is all, oh. Nothing really happened that night, Amaka responded. Stop lying, Amaka. What really happened that night? Jumoke asked again. Amaka suddenly froze. It seems like she remembered something. Oh no, this can't be, Amaka said, panicking. Grabbing her handbag, she rushed out of the hostel without another word. Amaka, where are you going to? Jumoke yelled. But Amaka didn't stop. Jumoke stood there, confused and anger boiling inside her. She walked back to the hostel, her heart heavy, her legs weak. She couldn't shake the scene of Amaka running away. What just happened? Why did Amaka run like that? She wondered. Confused and anger clouded her mind. As she approached her bed, her phone vibrated. It was her sister Moju calling. Jumoke took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she answered the call. Hello? Moju's voice came through, sharp and angry, cutting her off. You winch! How dare you pick this call? After all you have done, you still have the guts to act like nothing happened. Do you even realize what you have caused, Jumoke? You destroyed everything. Jumoke stuttered, tears already wailing in her eyes. Moju, Shut up! Shut your mouth up! Moju shouted, her voice growing louder. You killed my mother. You ruined her life. You ruined our life. You are nothing but a curse, a witch sent to bring misery to everyone around you. Tears rolled down Jumoke's face as she struggled to speak. I didn't mean... You didn't mean what, Jumoke? Moju screamed. You didn't mean to kill her, to ruin everything. Well, guess what? It doesn't matter. My mother is gone because of you. Jumoke, you destroyed me, my siblings, and my family. I cursed the day I ever met you. Immediately, she ended the call. Jumoke dropped the phone on her bed, her knees giving way as she collapsed onto the floor. Moju's words rang into her head like a curse. You will never know peace. She buried her face in her hand, sobbing uncontrollable. I never wanted this. I never meant for this to happen. Meanwhile, in another hostel, Amaka stormed into her sister's room. Her face paled with anger. She flung her bag on the floor. Shalewa! She shouted. Tell me the truth. What really happened after the party? Amaka asked. Shalewa looked up confused. What are you talking about? And why are you being dramatic? Don't lie to me, Amaka yelled, stepping closer. You dropped us off at that motel after the party. I know something happened. What did you do? Amaka asked. Shalewa rolled her eyes, trying to stay calm. Nothing happened. You are just being paranoid. What is the problem? Amaka grabbed her sister by the shoulder and shook her. Stop lying to me, Shalewa. Tell me the truth right now. But Shalewa signed, finally giving in. Fine. You really want to know the truth, right? I had a bet with my guy friend. He said Jumoke was not a virgin, but I told him that Jumoke is a virgin, and he said he wanted to sleep with her to confirm the truth. And if it happened that she was a virgin, he would pay me a lot of money for helping him. That's it though, Shalewa said. Amaka froze in disbelief. You what? Shalewa shrugged casually. I told him where you girls were staying. While you went back to the party, he went into the room and, well, he did it and he paid me, but he cleaned up afterward, so no one would suspect anything. That is why I told you to take a motel close by, Shalewa said. Amaka stumbled back, her face paled. You set her up, Shalewa. Amaka, calm down. What is wrong with you? Not today, Shalewa said with a smirk. It's not a big deal. You are being dramatic in my room. What is the problem? Not a big deal, Amaka screamed. Jumoke is pregnant and her mother is dead because of this. Do you even realize what you have done? She said. But Shalewa crossed her arms, looking uninterested. Pregnant? How is it my problem? That's her problem, not mine. I didn't force her to get pregnant. She's not a child anymore. She should have done something. I bet she didn't know she was pregnant. Abeko, don't come to my room and be dramatic like a mad woman, Shalewa said. Amaka's voice cracked as she shouted, how could you do something so evil just for money? You have destroyed her life. You have destroyed my life. But Shalewa rolled her eyes. She will get over it. It's not the end of the world. At least she's not dead. Even though her mother is dead, she's alive. She can get over it, Shalewa said, as if what she had done was normal. Amaka broke down, crying. It is the end of the world for her. Jumoke trusted me. I trusted you. How could you do this to us? But Shalewa shrugged again, her indifference cutting like a knife. Maybe you should stop being friends with her, and you won't feel guilty anymore. And stop shouting at me, I'm your senior sister, Shalewa said. But Amaka shouted, her voice harsh. You were supposed to protect us, Shalewa. You are my big sister. How could you? She said. The room fell silent, except for the sound of Amaka's cry. She felt trapped, torn between guilt and helplessness. Her sister's cold attitude only made things worse. Back in the hostel, Jumoke sat on her bed, her face swollen from crying. The pain of everything, Moju's words, Amaka's betrayal, her mother's death was too much to bear. Her life had changed forever and there was no going back. Amaka walked back to the hostel with a heavy heart, guilt weighing on her with every step. When she opened the door, she saw Jumoke sitting on the bed, crying silently. The sight broke Amaka's heart. Amaka, Jumoke's voice cracked as she looked up. Where were you? Why did you run away? What are you hiding? Please just talk to me, Jumoke said. But Amaka froze, struggling to find the words. Her mind raced, filled with thoughts of her sister and the truth she couldn't bring herself to share. I don't know how to tell you, Amaka whispered, trembling. I'm scared of what you might do. Scared of what? Jumoke's voice rose with desperation. Tell me, I need to know, she said. But Amaka felt trapped. What if Jumoke found out about Shalewa? What if she decided to take action? I swear, I didn't mean to hurt you, Amaka said, her voice breaking as tears filled her eyes. You know something, Jumoke cried, standing. When you ran out, it felt like you were running from the truth. Why won't you just tell me? She said. Amaka dropped to her knees, pleading. I am sorry, Jumoke. I was shocked. I didn't know how to handle it, but I swear, I don't know what really happened. Jumoke shook her head, her voice trembling. If you don't tell me, how can I help you? How can I understand? Please now, tell me, what is going on? Jumoke said, but Amaka took a deep breath, her voice soft but firm. Maybe it's better we stop being friends. I can't keep facing you like this, she said. What? Jumoke asked, stunned. I have failed you, Amaka said, tears streaming down her face. You deserve someone better, someone who won't betray you, she said. Jumoke's heart shattered. We have been through so much together. How can you just walk away? Jumoke said. Amaka looked around the room one last time. Memories of their friendship flooded her. I am sorry. I will be staying with my sister from now on. Thank you for everything, she said as she packed her things, and with one final apology, she walked out. Jumoke collapsed onto the floor crying. Why? Amaka, why? Her cries echoed in the empty room, her pain consuming her. Meanwhile, at the Afolabi home in Ondo State, the Afolabi family and friends gathered in the living room, mourning the death of Mrs. Afolabi. The room was tense, filled with grief. Where is Jumoke? One relative asked. Why isn't she here? At the mention of Jumoke, Moju erupted in anger. Don't mention that name in this house again. She's the reason my mother is dead. Gasps filled the room. How can you say that? Someone asked. Jumoke was her favorite. She was always by her side at the market. You don't understand, Moju snapped. Jumoke is a curse. She ruined everything in this family. So, don't mention her name ever again in this house. Immediately, the room went silent. No one dared to question Moju further. Meanwhile, back at the hostel, Jumoke sat alone, her heart weighed down by grief, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, why is this happening to me? God, what did I do to deserve this? The empty bed across from her reminded her of Amaka's departure. Why? Mom, why did you choose to leave me now? I need you so much now. Memories of her mother's laughter and warm hugs flooded her mind. I just wanted to make you proud, she cried. Why did you have to go? Jumoke clutched her stomach, crying uncontrollable. I don't know how to move on. It hurts me so much. Her cries echoed in the empty room. The pain of her loss and betrayal consumed her. The next morning, Jumoke woke up feeling a mix of sadness and gratitude. She was thankful to be alive, but there was a heavy weight in her chest. As she got ready for the day, she tried to push the feeling away. She had to attend her lectures, even though her heart was troubled. Softly, she whispered to herself, I can't believe she's gone. Mom, I wish you were here to help me through this. After gathering her books, Jumoke left her hostel room. The walk to the lecture hall felt long, and Amaka's hurtful words from the previous day kept replaying in her mind. When she entered the class, she immediately saw Amaka sitting at the back. Their eyes met briefly, but Amaka quickly looked away, deepening the hurt in Jumoke's heart. Why is she avoiding me? Jumoke thought sadly. I thought she was supposed to be my friend. Throughout the lecture, Amaka avoided her, and the silence between them made Jumoke feel even lonelier. After the class, as Jumoke walked back to her hostel, she noticed students staring at her. Their looks were cold, and whispers filled the air around her. Confused and anxious, she started hearing bits of what they were saying. Look at her, the murderer, one whispered. And she's even cheap girl, always sneaking around, another student said scornfully. Someone else laughed. How can she still show her face here? Jumoke's heart sank. The judgment in their eyes made her feel small. She quickened her pace, rushing back to her hostel, shutting the door behind her. She tried to calm her racing thoughts. What is happening? She whispered to herself. Why are they saying those things? She turned on her phone, and as soon as her data was on, her notification flooded in. Messages, tags, and alerts appeared at once. Trembling, she opened the first video, her breath caught in her throat as she saw herself naked in a private moment, her vision blurred with tears. No, this can't be happening, she muttered, her voice breaking. Before she could process the shock, another video began to play. It was Moju, her sister, speaking angrily into the camera. This is my sister Jumoke, Moju said, her voice shaking with rage. The one who stole our mother's love. What now? She destroyed us. My mother is dead because of her shameful behavior, sneaking around, sleeping with men, and now she's pregnant out of wedlock. She's a disgrace. Moju's voice turned cold. From today on, she is no longer my sister. Our mother died of heartbreak because of her. Jumoke, I curse you. You are dead to us. Jumoke dropped her phone, her body trembling as Moju's word echoed in her mind. Tears streamed down her face. This isn't true. I didn't do this, she whispered. Desperate to escape the suffocating room, she ran out. In the hostel corridor, students surrounded her, shouting insults. How dare you show your face here? Someone yelled. You are wicked, Jumoke, another shouted. Suddenly, Amaka appeared and stood in front of Jumoke. Leave her alone, Amaka shouted. You don't know the whole story. Stop judging her. The crowd hesitated, but eventually backed off. Jumoke, however, turned to Amaka with anger. I told you to stay away from me. I don't need your help, she shouted before storming off. Jumoke left the hostel and wandered aimlessly. Hours passed, and as night fell, she found herself on a dark street. Her heart filled with despair. She suddenly stepped into the path of a speeding car. Her eyes shut tightly. The car screeched to a stop just in time. The driver jumped out shouting, Are you mad? Do you want to die? Whatever it is not worth this. Jumoke opened her eyes, disappointment clear on her face. Why did you stop? You should have just hit me, she yelled, tears streaming down her face. The driver's expression softened. He gently led her to the side of the road and sat with her. I don't know what you are going through, but life is precious, he said softly. In my village, we say, when the storm passes, the land becomes fertile again. No matter how bad things seem, you can rebuild, the driver said. Jumoke whispered, what if the storm never ends? It will, he replied gently. The sun always comes back. Don't let others decide your worth. Jumoke felt a small flicker of hope. The man patted her shoulder. Now, let's get you somewhere safe. You are stronger than what you think, and tomorrow can be better. She looked at him with tears in her eyes and said, I don't have a home. Then, let's take it one step at a time, he replied calmly. They sat together under the stars, and for the first time in days, Jumoke felt a little peace. The driver spoke gently, his voice calm and reassuring. You seem calmer now. My name is Michael. I live nearby with my wife. If you don't have anywhere to stay, you are welcome to come with me. Don't worry, my wife is kind. You can tell me your story whenever you are ready. No rush, he said to her. Jumoke hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you so much. I didn't think anyone would. Michael nodded, offering her a reassuring smile. He opened the car door for her and helped her into the passenger seat. As they drove, the silence in the car was broken only by the hums of the engine. The street light illuminated Jumoke's face, her heart heavy with mix of fear and gratitude. When they arrived at Michael's house, Michael's wife was in the living room watching TV. She rushed to greet him with a smile, but froze when she saw Jumoke. "Who is she, Michael? And why is she here?" Michael's wife said, frowning. My wife. This is Jumoke. She has been through a lot, and I couldn't just leave her. She will be staying with us for now," Michael said calmly. Jumoke stepped forward respectfully. "Good evening, ma. Thank you for..." But Michael's wife cut her off angrily. "Michael, you brought her here. Have you lost your mind? I have seen this girl all over social media. She killed her own mother." Jumoke's face crumbled. Fresh tears streamed down her cheek. "I am sorry. I never wanted to cause trouble. I will take my leave. Thank you for your kindness." As she turned to leave, Michael gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "No, Jumoke, you are staying here with us. Please have a seat." Then he turned to his wife. "Excuse us for a moment." He led his wife into their bedroom and shut the door. Her anger boiled over. "How could you bring her into our home? That girl is a murderer and she's a prostitute," Michael's wife said. "Watch your word. You don't know her story," Michael said firmly. "I don't care about her story. I want her out of my house, Michael. Do you know what people will say?" Michael's wife said. "I don't care what people will think. That girl was about to end her life. I couldn't just walk away," Michael replied. His wife stared at him in disbelief, but he didn't back down. "She's staying here, and that's fine now," he said. Without waiting for her response, Michael left the room and returned to Jumoke. "Come, let me show you the guest room," Michael said gently. Michael led Jumoke to a small but neat room. She managed to give a weak smile through her tears. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you," Jumoke said calmly. "Just rest. I will get you something to eat," Michael said smiling. He brought her a plate of food and she ate quickly, her hunger overpowering her sadness. I haven't eaten since yesterday. Thank you for everything," Jumoke said softly. Later that night, while his wife was sleeping, Michael laid awake going through social media. He saw videos and posts about Jumoke, filled with cruel comments and accusations. How can people be so cruel? Michael thought to himself. He frowned at a video of Jumoke's sister making hateful remarks. Something isn't right. There is more to this than what people are saying, Michael whispered to himself. Meanwhile, in the guest room, Jumoke cried silently, replaying her sister's words in her mind. Her heart felt heavy with betrayal, and the words seemed unbearably cruel. As the clock struck midnight, the house was filled with an uneasy silence. Michael laid awake in his bed, unable to stop thinking about Jumoke's story. He turned to his wife Chichi, who was fast asleep. Torn between his concern for Jumoke and how Chichi might feel, he finally decided to wake her up. "Chichi, wake up, please." Chichi stared at him, her expression annoyed. "Michael, why are you waking me up by this time? It is not even morning. What is it?" "Chichi, I am sorry, but I couldn't sleep. I need to talk to you." She sighed, crossing her arms. "Let me guess, it's about that girl," Chichi said. "Yes, I know you were upset about me bringing Jumoke here without telling you, and I am sorry. I should have called you," Michael said, feeling remorseful. "It is not about just calling me Michael. It is about respect. You have made a decision without thinking about how I would feel, and you think it is right," Chichi said, annoyed. "I know I was wrong, and I am sorry, but I couldn't leave her in that situation. She was all alone. I believe God wanted me to help her," Michael said. "So now it's about God, Abi? Are you choosing her over me?" Chichi replied. "No, Chichi, this isn't about choosing anyone. It is about helping someone in need. Jumoke's story is very complicated than the gossip you see online," Michael replied. "Michael, complicated or not, do you expect me to accept someone with such a reputation in my home? What will people say?" Chichi replied back. Let them talk. Let them talk, Chichi. What matters is that we do something that is right. And I also read something about her online. She might be pregnant, Michael said. Chichi's eyes widened slightly. Her expression softened. So that is why. Do you really think she deserves our help? Chichi said. Yes, but I understand it is not easy for you. Please, let us look beyond the rumors, Michael said. After a moment of silence, Chichi nodded reluctantly. Fine, if you believe this is the right thing to do, she can stay. Michael sighed in a relief and hugged her. Thank you, my love. This means a lot to me. The next morning, after breakfast, Michael and Chichi sat with Jumoke in the living room. Jumoke, we have decided you can stay with us. Chichi has agreed as well, Michael said. Jumoke's eyes filled with tears. Thank you so much. I don't know how to repay your kindness, she said. You don't need to repay us. Just tell us your story when you are ready. We want to help you. Jumoke hesitated, then began recounting her painful journey. As she spoke, her tears flowed freely from her face, and Michael listened with a heavy heart. I am so sorry for everything you have been through. No one deserves that kind of pain. We will help you find the truth and clear your name, Michael said, feeling pitiful. Thank you, sir. I am truly grateful, Jumoke replied. We will start by contacting your friend Amaka. Once you get your phone back, we will reach out to her. Chichi was sitting silently, masked her bitterness with a smile. Though her face remained calm, she couldn't shake her resentment towards Jumoke. Later that morning, when Michael left for work, he kissed Chichi goodbye. As soon as he was gone, Chichi's demeanor shifted. She returned to the living room, glaring at Jumoke. Listen, girl, from now on, you will sit on the floor. Don't ever think of putting your filthy self on my couch. Do you hear me? Chichi said. Jumoke looked up, shocked and speechless. Yes, ma. And one more thing, don't you dare tell my husband about this conversation. If you do, you will regret it. Jumoke nodded, her heart sinking. Chichi hissed and locked the kitchen door, taking the key with her. The warmth Jumoke had felt earlier was gone, replaced by cold hostility. Alone in the house, she realized she would have to endure Chichi's cruelty while figuring out how to survive. Look at her, pathetic and useless thing, Chichi said as she left the house. That evening, Michael came home from work looking pleased as he carried bags filled with clothes, toiletries, and other items he had bought for Jumoke. She was sitting quietly in the living room when he walked in. Jumoke, I got you few things, some clothes and essentials I thought you might need, Michael said, smiling. Jumoke's face lit up with surprise and gratitude as she accepted the bags. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I don't know what I would say, she said, feeling emotional. Michael placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You don't have to say anything. We are just happy that you are here with us. You deserve a fresh start, Michael said gently. Jumoke held the bags tightly, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude. But across the room, Chichi watched, her first smile barely hiding the irritation on her face. Later that night, Michael fell into a deep sleep after his long day, but Chichi laid awake, consumed with anger, unable to hold it in. She quietly slipped out of the bed and headed to Jumoke's room. Chichi entered, her face hard as stone, waking Jumoke with her presence. So, you think you have charmed my husband, don't you? Chichi said coldly. Jumoke looked up, confused and frightened. Ma, I don't understand, Jumoke said, stammering. Chichi let out a bitter laugh, moving closer. Don't play dumb with me. You are a corny little snake, trying to gain my husband's sympathy with your fake innocence, Chichi said angrily. Jumoke pressed herself against the wall, tears threatening to fall. Ma, please. I would never. I am just grateful for his kindness, she said, pleading. Chichi's voice rose with venom. Kindness? Don't think I don't see through your acts. If you ever try to turn my husband against me, I will throw you out of this house without hesitation. And don't you dare say a word to him. Do you understand? Chichi gave her a stern warning. Jumoke nodded weakly, barely able to speak. Yes, ma, I heard you, Jumoke said. Satisfied, Chichi stormed out, leaving Jumoke crying silently in her room. The next morning, the smell of breakfast filled the house as Michael walked into the dining room. He was surprised to see Jumoke sitting on the floor eating. Jumoke, why are you eating on the floor? Come and sit at the table, Michael said, frowning. Jumoke quickly shook her head, trying to hide her panic. No, sir. I am fine here. I am used to it. I love sitting on the floor, Jumoke said, forcing a smile. Michael looked at Chichi, who was sipping her tea calmly. Chichi, why would you let her sit on the floor to eat? She's our guest, for crying out loud, Michael said, feeling irritated. Chichi raised an eyebrow, pretending to be surprised. I've told her to join us, but she insisted on sitting there. Maybe it is what she prefers, Chichi said calmly. Michael turned back to Jumoke, his tone firm but kind. Jumoke, please sit at the table. You are not here to be treated as anything less than family, Michael said. Jumoke hesitated, glancing nervously at Chichi, but eventually moved to the table. That's better, isn't it, Jumoke? Chichi said, forcing a smile. After breakfast, as soon as Michael left for work, Chichi's attitude changed. Her voice was cold and commanding. Jumoke, since you are staying here, it is only fair you help me with the housework, Chichi said. Jumoke quickly nodded. Yes, ma, of course. Good. Clean the floor, the kitchen, the bathroom, then do the laundry, and don't expect breakfast until everything is spotless. Understood? Chichi said coldly. Jumoke nodded, swallowing her frustration. As she gathered cleaning supplies, she worked tirelessly, scrubbing and washing without a break. By the time she finished, her body ached and hunger gnawed at her stomach. Later that evening, Michael returned home immediately. Notice how tired Jumoke looked. Jumoke, you look exhausted. Have you eaten? Michael asked with a concern. Before Jumoke could answer, Chichi spoke up smoothly. She insisted on helping me with the housework today. I told her to rest, but she wouldn't listen, Chichi said, smiling. Michael frowned, sensing something wasn't right, but he let it go. Jumoke, please make sure you rest. You are here to heal and not to overwork yourself, Michael said gently. Jumoke nodded, giving him a grateful smile, though she felt Chichi's cold glare piercing through her. Later that night, Michael laid beside Chichi. Unable to sleep, he turned to her, hesitant at first, but decided to speak. Chichi, he began, there is something I have been thinking about. Chichi turned to him, her expression already showing a hint of irritation. What is it, Michael? She asked, her tone sharp. Michael sighed and continued. It is about Jumoke. I want to take responsibility for her and her unborn child, at least until she finishes school and can stand on her own feet. Immediately, Chichi's face hardened, anger flashing in her eyes. Why would you even think of that, Michael? She's young and strong and can find a small job to take care of herself and continue school, Chichi said firmly. Michael tried to keep calm. Chichi, nobody will hire a pregnant girl, especially with her story all over the internet. She needs stability, and I have the means to help. Chichi crossed her arms. If you want to help her, fine, but I don't agree with giving her everything on a platter. She needs to learn responsibilities. Chichi, it is my money, Michael replied firmly, and I will use it however I want. Chichi's face twisted and tears suddenly rolled down her cheek. I can't believe you are talking to me like this because of that girl. Do you even care about me anymore? Michael softened, taking her hand. Chichi, I love you. This doesn't change anything between us. Please, try to understand. Chichi nodded reluctantly, but her thoughts were far from settled. Fine, Michael. well. Help her all you want, but she will wish she never stepped foot into this house, she thought to herself bitterly. Do you think Chichi would take it easy on Jumoke? And if you were in Chichi's shoe, what would you do if your husband brings a girl to your house? Also, do you think Amaka was wrong for covering what her sister did to Jumoke? What will be Jumoke's fate? We'll find out in part 2. Thank you for watching this story. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Kindly share the lesson you've learned so far. And don't forget to share this story to your family and friends. May God bless you. Bye.